Hey everyone, it's Zach Beck. Whether you realize it or not, you've probably been on track to become a millionaire at some point in time in your life. Have you ever spent time saving money? You were on track to become a millionaire. Did you ever invest any of your money? You were on track to become a millionaire. Did you ever work a dead-end job where you just earn an average salary? Guess what? You were on track to become a millionaire. As you will see, none of these are get-rich-quick schemes or anything to that extent. You don't need to win the lottery. You don't need to sell a ridiculous NFT. You don't even need a trust fund in order to become a millionaire or to become wealthy in your life. As a matter of fact, there are simple steps that you and I can take in order to achieve millionaire status or just to become wealthy in our own lives if we know how to spend our money wisely and most importantly save and invest our money properly in order to achieve that goal. So what I want to do in this video is break down in detail the specific steps that you can take while working an average job with an average salary that you can actually move forward and achieve long-term goals by becoming a millionaire and becoming wealthy in your life. So let's take our time, dive into the details, and jump into it right now. All right, well, no one becomes a millionaire without a bit of number crunching. If you truly want to have $1 million saved at some point in time in your life, you're going to have to do a lot of planning beforehand in order to understand how you're going to actually save that money and invest it in order to achieve that goal. So there are a few questions that you will want to ask yourself. The first question is this: what exact average annual salary do you need to have? The next question you want to ask yourself is what living expenses do you have right now that will chip away at your savings rate? Most importantly, you want to ask yourself how much money can you afford to save annually? Then you need to ask yourself what investment percentages do you need to actually put in to make them worthwhile. Now let's do some math. Let's imagine that you earn an average salary of, let's say, $50,000 a year. And let's pretend for this instance that you do not have to spend any of that money. And this is $50,000 after taxes. So let's say you don't have any housing expense, no transportation costs, nothing associated with any or sort of groceries or food or anything to that extent. You're just netting $50,000 on an annual basis. Well, guess what? If you do not want to invest that money, you just want to put it in your bank and you want to have $1 million, what you actually need to do is work for 20 years and save $50,000 and then you are a millionaire. Now that obviously is an interesting situation, but it's unlikely because as the average person who makes $50,000 generally cannot save $50,000 because we all need food, shelter, transportation. We need all those different things. So from that standpoint alone, this is a pretty ridiculous component. So you need to try and find an alternative way to have your money actually grow while you're able to save it and still being able to spend money on the things that you need. Well, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Zach, if I only make $50,000 a year, how am I ever going to be able to become a millionaire? Well, the thing is this, is that you do not necessarily need to earn 6 figures annually in order to become a millionaire. That's because there's a saying from a gentleman by the name of Robert Kiyosaki who actually says that most people fail to realize that in life, it's not how much you make, it's how much money you keep. Therefore, the importance of saving money is really critical to us being able to achieve the goal of becoming wealthy or becoming a millionaire at some point in time in our lives. And one of the things that you heard me talk about earlier is it could take you 20 years of saving $50,000 with no growth in that money to be able to have $1 million saved. But there's this benefit of compound interest that you can actually benefit from if you start a little bit earlier, and you don't necessarily need to work all those 20 years, but it would just depend upon your specific situation and how much money you save. That's because time is on your side when you're young. The sooner that you start putting away money, the more benefit you're going to receive from compound interest. For example, if you start at the age of 23 and just save $14 a day until you reach the age of 67, you would actually save $1 million. On the other hand, if you wait until the age of 35, you would have to start saving $30 a day in order to reach $1 million by the age of 67. And once again, this is factoring in that not just you're putting this money into a bank account, but that you're saving the money by investing into the stock market with a very simple return, let's say 6% into an average index fund. The most important step that you can take in order to reach millionaire status is if you save the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'm just kidding, but if you wouldn't mind tapping the like button, that would help the channel out a lot and help push this video to other people who might need to hear it. The truth is that you can build a multi-million-dollar portfolio starting on an average salary if you start young. And even if you don't, there are other ways to get there as well. So don't be discouraged, I will show you that route as well. But for comparison, let's take a look at this chart that shows how you could actually save money and the percentage you would have to set aside of your income in order to reach a $2 million net worth portfolio, depending upon the age that you start at. So this comparison shows the percentage of each biweekly paycheck that a 22-year-old and a 30-year-old would need to set aside in order to build $2 million worth of portfolio by the age of 67 based on an average salary. So if you were to start at the age of 22, you would have, let's say if you make $40,000 a year, you would need to save about 22.5% of your average salary in order to be able to actually reach $2 million by the age of 67. If, so say you made $60,000 a year, you would need to save about 14% of your salary in order to reach that same goal. Now, if you go up the ladder and reach, say, $80,000 a year, you would only need to save 11% in order to reach that goal. If you made over $100,000 a year, you would only need to save 8% of your salary. And if you made over $120,000 a year, then you'd only need to save 7% of your salary. Then if we look at someone who's the age of 30, it does change pretty dramatically. Then you go to $40,000 a year, that person would need to save over 36% of their salary. Whereas if you go to $60,000 a year, they would need to save 24% of their salary. If they made $80,000 a year, they would need to save 18% of their salary. And if you had $100,000 a year, they would actually need to save 14% of their salary. And if they made $120,000 a year, starting at the age of 30, they would need to save nearly 12.5% of their salary in order to be able to have $2 million by the age of 67. So as you can see, this is a really interesting dynamic that is at play when you factor in compound interest. Now, obviously people who are watching this video might be in their teens, 20s, or you might be past your 30s and your 40s or 50s. So you might be thinking to yourself, how can I go about actually saving enough money to invest into the stock market to achieve my goals? The unfortunate thing is that there's no magic workaround compound interest. But what you can do is you can be relatively thoughtful in how you approach this by making sure that you're cutting back on your living expenses, trying to save money wherever you can, not adhering to lifestyle inflation, making sure that you have no debt whatsoever. And then once you're past all of those thresholds, as you start to invest, you can hopefully invest more of your money into the market at a little bit of a higher rate in order to be able to achieve that goal as well. All right, well, the average salary here in the United States of America is actually $68,000 a year. So what I want to do right now is break down two different paths that you could go down, saying if you make $68,000 a year. And if this is a little bit of a high income for you, I apologize, just kind of crunch the numbers accordingly. And if this is low for you, do the same. But I'm just going based off of the average right now. So let's say you made $68,000 a year and you did the average approach towards your saving and investing, which would actually be investing 7% of your income. Whereas let's say if you went a more aggressive approach and invested 30% of your income, let's see where those two paths would lead. All right, so let's take a look at this situation. So let's say someone who makes $68,000 a year sets aside 7% of their income and places it into a high interest savings account. Maybe it only averages maybe 2% on an annual basis. So over the course of a 40-year career, that person is only going to have $364,124, which sounds great. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's actually pretty substantial. However, when you factor in the difference, just the simple difference of investing your money into an index fund as opposed to just setting aside into a savings account, the outcome is pretty dramatic. On the flip side, that same person who made $68,000 a year invests 30% of their income and they place it into an index fund as opposed to just a high interest savings account. And let's say that this index fund returns 10% on an annual basis. That person during that 40-year period of time would result with $9,435,592. So as you can see, it is a dramatic difference when you and I take the approach of actually investing our money as opposed to just simply saving our money. Obviously, we need to set aside money and have cash available for a rainy day. I talk frequently on the channel about having an emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of your living expenses set aside, so if anything happens, you have money there to be able to access it. But if you're actually intentional about how you set aside your money and invest it by putting it into an index fund over the course of your career without even having to think about it, again, you could see the results speak for themselves. And I know this is obviously an overly simplistic approach that I was taking. The market does fluctuate a bit. I use 10% for the index fund. Actually, over the last 40 years, the index funds return about 11.6%, so I might be a little bit low on that. And obviously savings accounts are a little bit lower than 2% right now because inflation is coming and because we're dealing with low interest rates from the Federal Reserve. So you can see that there's a lot of variables to take into consideration, But if you just adopt a simple mindset where you're saying, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm investing my money. I'm not going and just buying GameStop or Tesla or individual stocks, trying to figure it out that way. I'm just going to go into index funds, making sure I'm setting aside as much of my money as I'm comfortable with doing so, and let that just happen over the course of time. It really will benefit you and could be substantial. And as you saw, that person reached over $9.4 million by the age of 67. Obviously, that same person, once they reach a certain amount, could have retired earlier, maybe even 10, 15 years earlier, because what's the difference between $6 million and $9 million? So just something to think about as well, especially if you also want to retire early. An important element of saving money is making sure that you look at percentages as opposed to just dollars, because hopefully over the course of your career, you will actually earn more money over time. And if you're just setting aside a set dollar amount every single day or every single week or every single month, that is a good starting point. But you want to make sure that you're increasing the percentage of money you're setting aside, so that way you at least have a percentage tag to how much money you're making. So let's say you earn $50,000 a year and you're setting aside $5,000 of your income on an annual basis, which would be 10%. That's a good number to stick to. But let's say you average, maybe earning $75,000 a year. You don't want to just save $5,000. You would want to make sure you're keeping that 10% approach. So you'd be saving $7,500 a year. Hopefully you're actually hitting more of a 15, 20, 30% range when you're looking at saving and investing, or even if you want to go a little higher, like 50% of your income, which is personally what I do. That is a better approach towards achieving your goals that much more quickly, and that's how you can actually shave off the amount of time you're going to have to put into the workplace by actually setting aside money more aggressively and doing so in a manner that still allows you to live in the present. But you really want to look at percentages, not just dollars. Now, when it comes to executing this, of actually achieving the type of wealth or achieving millionaire status by a certain time in your life, you really want to have a system in place that can help you do so. Because if you're constantly monitoring the stock market, if you're constantly looking at your bank account, and if you're constantly doing things that are forcing you to obsess over your finances, you'll be less inclined, and it actually might be more stressed and prevent you from actually doing so. So what I like to do is automate my financial situation, and I do it in the following way. I have money automatically deducted out of my paycheck going into what is called a 457 account. That is basically a retirement account, the equivalent of a 401k, but it's because I work in the government, it's a little bit different. So I have money automatically set aside there. Then all of my money that goes into my checking account automatically goes into a Roth IRA, so I'm investing once again for my retirement. Then I have money set aside going into my savings account, and from my savings account, money then goes into my brokerage account. It goes into a cash account where I'm earning high interest, and then it does everything I need in order for it to save as much money as possible automatically every single month. So I set those percentages, I say how much money I want it to go, and it does so. And this is something that anyone can do as long as you have a bank and then you have the access to the internet, or if you go into your physical branch, you can do that as well. But if you set up a system that allows you to have your finances automated, you don't even have to think about it, and then you're less likely to pull money out or not put money in and do things that are actually going to allow you to achieve those goals. Personally, I like to use Wealthfront for my automation of finances. This is actually how I invest into the stock market, specifically through Wealthfront. So if you want to try that out, I have a link in the description down below where you can get your first $500 managed for free if you click the link and actually try it out. I like it because it's very simple, it's automated, it's intuitive, and allows me to kind of get my financial footing in order, and I don't have to think too much about what's happening in the stock market on a day-to-day basis. I'm thinking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And that's just a mentality that all of us should really be considering, living in the present but still planning for the future. And I know you can do so, and Wealthfront is a really good tool to do that. And like I said, I'm not affiliated with them, I don't get paid by them or anything. I'm just telling you, after all the research I did, this was the company I landed on. I've been very pleased so far. Furthermore, if you want to go a bit more into individual stocks, you can do that as well. I have links in the description for WeBull, for Robinhood, and even if you want to go more the index fund route, you can try Acorns, and I'll talk about that in a second. But with Robinhood and WeBull, if you want to go and pick individual stocks, you can do so, but just bear in mind it requires more research and intentionality to do this, and I would say it's a bit riskier of an approach to take. But if you click the links in the description below, you'll actually get free stocks by opening up platforms for yourself, so feel free to check that out if you want to try that. I would be more inclined towards Wealthfront. Also, if you want to get in the habit of saving money on a daily basis, in addition to what I was talking about, try and use Acorns. Acorns is actually something that links to your debit card. What you do is anytime you make a transaction, you buy a cup of coffee, you go and get some groceries at the store. Let's say your transaction is $5.50. It'll take the remaining 50 cents, round it up to $6, and invest that 50 cents into an index fund. So it's just a very easy, automated way for you to actually start getting in the savings habit. But I would say you need to have the bigger automated system built out in order to achieve that goal. financial. So Acorns is just a way for you to kind of get in the habit of setting aside money that you weren't even thinking about doing otherwise. Now, the truth of the situation is that 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So if you're earning an average salary right now here in the United States, you might be having trouble just getting by on a weekly basis. That can be because of crippling debt, maybe you have student loans that you're still paying back, maybe you have a really high mortgage, maybe you're paying off a large car. Whatever it can mean, it's going to be a lot for yourself. So from that standpoint alone, it's important for you to think about how can you cut back on spending in certain areas of your life. And I would look at the three big areas: housing, transportation, and food. And if you get those three areas most secure and actually cut them down to a reasonable rate, that will help you by then allowing you to set aside and invest the difference. And it's not just saving money, it's also how you can make more money. So if you're able to actually generate additional streams of income, that can help out as well. During the course of the pandemic, many people accrued different side hustles and side gigs that actually brought in additional revenue. If you can start generating a little bit of additional revenue and income, then you can take that money, don't spend it, just immediately set it into the index fund or set it into your stock market investment account, and that'll really help you grow your finances over time. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. If you wouldn't mind, please like the video for the YouTube algorithm. Help push this video to other people who might need to hear it. Furthermore, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I'd love to interact with you, get to know you, do any research on your behalf, and help you make wise decisions moving forward so that you can achieve your goals, and hopefully one day you can become a millionaire and become wealthy and have the type of revenue that you need in your life to be able to achieve your goals and your dreams. Furthermore, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel. That would mean a lot to myself personally, as I do everything I can to create positive content that makes a positive impact in your life by encouraging you and myself to lead lives of meaning and purpose, all while maintaining balance and moderation. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please tap the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a video, which I do on a weekly basis. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. I hope you have a wonderful remainder day. Talk to you next time.